Hey, Faith Labs family, Adam Wilber here, and today I want to talk to you about something Jesus said that might seem simple at first, but it's been rattling around in my heart for the last few days in pretty profound ways. Quote, "You are the salt of the earth," end quote. That's it, just 5 words from Matthew chapter 5, verse 13. But have you ever really thought about what Jesus meant? Not just the Sunday school answer, but what it means for us today in our neighborhoods, our workplaces, and our online spaces. I remember when my kids were young, I was doing my best to make a at-home meal, something I cooked for myself and for my kids. One gift that God didn't grant me was the gift of culinary mastery, for real. But I did my best to put on my best Martha Stewart and give it a shot. I followed the spaghetti recipe to the letter, or so I thought. When we all sat down for dinner, my youngest took one bite and scrunched up her face at me. My oldest was a little more diplomatic, taking a few polite bites before putting down his fork. "Dad," he said with this beautiful honesty that only kids have, "Dad, something's missing." It turns out I'd forgotten to add salt to the pasta water. If you've ever done that, you know what happens next. Bland, flavorless pasta that no amount of sauce could save. And it hit me. That's exactly what Jesus was trying to tell us. In Jesus' day, salt wasn't just something you put on fries. It was essential, life-sustaining. Without refrigeration, salt preserved food. It kept meat from spoiling. Salt was so valuable that Roman soldiers were sometimes paid with it. That's where we actually get our word salary. But salt doesn't work from a distance. It's got to make contact. It has to dissolve and dissipate to do what it's designed to do. Look at those tiny crystals of salt. They don't look very powerful, do they? But when salt touches decay, it stops it. When salt meets blandness, it brings out flavor. When salt encounters a wound, it stings, but it also cleanses and heals. Here's what fascinates me though. Salt doesn't need a marketing campaign. It doesn't need to convince you of its saltiness. It just does what it does. And what it does is transforms everything it touches. In a world obsessed with platforms and influence and follower counts, there's something deeply comforting about that, at least to me. Jesus continues with something curious. He says, quote, "But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot." End quote. Now, pure salt can't actually lose its saltiness. The chemical compound sodium chloride is stable. So what exactly was Jesus talking about? In ancient Palestine, most salt came from the Dead Sea. It was mixed with other minerals and impurities. Over time, the actual salt could be washed out, leaving behind something that looked like salt but had lost its essential nature, its ability to preserve, season, and purify. I think about how easy it is for us to look like Christians without living as Christians. I did it for most of my life. To have the language and the Sunday attendance and the fish bumper sticker, but to have lost the essential transformative presence we're meant to bring to the decaying world that we're all a part of. So what does being salt look like in our neighborhoods and our workplaces in today's world? I got a friend, let's call him Mike. Mike works in a corporate environment where cutthroat competition is the norm. We've heard this before because the drill is something we're all familiar with. Mike doesn't make a big show of his faith. He doesn't have Bible verses plastered on his cubicle walls. But when someone's struggling, Mike's the first to quietly offer up help. When gossip starts, he skillfully changes the subject. When the team succeeds, he makes sure everybody on the team gets credit, even if it was mostly his doing. One day, during layoffs, a coworker came to him and said, "Hey, I don't know what it is about you, Mike, but you make this place better. More human somehow." That's being salt. Or a neighbor I used to have named Sarah. In our politically divided neighborhood, she hosted dinners where people with opposing views would just sit down to break bread together, not to debate or convert each other, but simply recognize each other's humanity, to listen. The conversations aren't always comfortable, but they're always filled with dignity. That's being salt. Being salt is beautifully counterculture in at least 3 ways. First, salt works through presence, not dominance. It doesn't overpower, it enhances. In a world of shouting and culture wars, there's something powerful about a faith that doesn't need to dominate to transform. Second, salt works from the bottom up, not from the top down. We often think change requires position, platform, or power, but salt dissolves. It gets into the cracks. It works in the everyday moments and relationships. And third, salt creates thirst. When we truly live as salt with integrity, compassion, and purpose, it makes others thirsty for what we have. Not because we've argued them into the kingdom, but because we've tasted something different in how we live. So how do we live as salt on the earthly, practical terms? It starts with proximity. Salt can't preserve or flavor from a distance. Are we willing to be close to the very places and people that need preservation and flavor? This might mean getting involved in your local school, being present in difficult conversations, or simply being a good neighbor. It also requires integrity. Salt is consistent all the way through. Are we the same person in private as we are in public? Do we speak with kindness online and offline? Do our Monday ethics match our Sunday worship? It also demands distinctiveness. Salt stands out. It doesn't blend in. This doesn't mean being weird or offensive. It means being courageously kind when others are cruel, generous when others are greedy, humble when others posture for position. Friends, we're not called to be the spotlight of the world, drawing attention to ourselves. We're called to be small, salt, humble, often unseen yet absolutely transformative. In a world hungry for authenticity, desperate for healing, and striving for hope, you may be the only taste of God's grace someone experiences today. The question isn't whether you have enough influence or eloquence. The question is, will you bring the unique, flavoring presence of Christ to wherever you are? Because we are the salt of the earth, not because we earned it, but because He named us so. Now, go season your world. Thanks for spending some time together. Until next time, I'm Adam Wilber, and this is Faith Labs. As always, my friend, onward. God bless you. If this has somehow resonated with you, make sure to subscribe and share this video with someone who might need this reminder today. And drop a comment below. I'd love to hear how you're being salt in your corner of the world. Thanks again for being here. God bless.